Now, BTN Live has already gotten the coach's perspective on recruiting from Glenn Mason. We've heard enough from him, so we need to bring in the player's perspective, or the former player's perspective.
Thank you. I'm glad you got rid of the coach.
As Howard Griffith comes back in, and we introduce you to these three gentlemen. Stephen Richardson played at Mount Carmel in Chicago, defensive tackle. You should see the size of this guy's hands. That's why Jerry Kill is excited that he'll be playing up in Minnesota. Brendan Brosnan, offensive lineman who played at Maine South in the burbs of Chicago. He'll head to State College and play for James Franklin at Penn State. And Clayton Thorson, pro-style quarterback is what they officially call Clayton on the recruiting websites. From Wheaton North, he'll play close to home for Pat Fitzgerald and the Northwestern Wildcats. Well, Stephen, it's been a good year, good run for Jerry Kill in Minnesota, especially defensively, really improved last year. Why did you decide to head to Minneapolis?
I mainly decided to head to Minneapolis because of the facility down there. I wasn't thinking much when I went down there first, but once you get down there, it's like a hidden treasure, basically. The coaches are nice. They're basically just like mine, and the players are really cool as well. How
much did you keep track of what was going on with Coach Kill this year as he dealt with some of those epileptic seizures?
I have like 2 epileptic friends, so I didn't think too much of it. I just thought it made them stronger. It made the team stronger, that they had an extra challenge to face.
Now, Brendan, you originally were committed to James Franklin in Vanderbilt. When James Franklin ended up in State College, you ended up at Penn State as well. Why did you decide to follow Coach Franklin to State College?
You know, a lot of it actually came down just to the relationships we built. Obviously, he recruited me to Vanderbilt, and I wasn't sure how long he was going to stay at Vanderbilt. I knew he was probably going to leave within the next year or two. And then when he eventually did leave, he called me up and said, yeah, we need offensive linemen. We believe in you. We know how great you can be. And that really kind of sealed the deal for me, showed that the coaches, Coach Franklin and the rest of the coaching staff really believed in me and what I can do. And they treated my family like their family and always, welcomed us with open arms. And it just felt like the right place. After I visited, everything felt awesome, and it was, just a great decision.
Now, Clayton, you had come to your decision about going to Northwestern quite a while ago, really before your senior season ever began. Why were you so sold on Pat Fitzgerald and the Cats from such an early date?
Yeah, I always wanted to play in the Big Ten and play locally so my family could come see me play. And just the opportunity to play for Coach Fitzgerald and to get an education like I can get at Northwestern was just something I couldn't pass up. So.
Clayton, let's go down the line and talk to me a little about the process, about coming to make the realization that this is where you want it to be for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a big decision. It's something you really got to think about and pray about. But I just felt like Northwestern, that's somewhere where it'll prepare me for the next 40 years of my life with their education, but also the opportunity to play Big Ten football and to play in the NFL.
Was there any concerns of maybe because they had a mobile quarterback in Kane Coulter that moved around a lot? Was there any concerns, or do you have any questions of whether or not you can do that part of the game?
No, I mean, like he said, they say some people say I'm a pro style, some people say dual threat, but I like to think I'm a dual threat quarterback. I feel like I can run, so I felt like I fit into their offense.
Well, what about your situation, making the move? You talked about going to Penn State. I want to talk about it a little bit. When you talked about Coach Franklin making that phone call, what was that like, and what was the energy like on the other line from Coach Franklin?
He always has a lot of energy. That's the special thing about Coach Franklin and his staff. Yeah, he always brings a ton of energy to the table, and just talking to some of his former players at Vanderbilt, they really respect him, and he brings he just makes football a fun sport, like it should be, and it's just.
The energy side of it was out off the roof, to say the least, right?
Exactly.
So when you decided to go to Penn State, was there any apprehensions, knowing that they were coming off the sanctions? Well, still are in the middle of those sanctions, but was there any apprehension on your part there? Yeah,
there were a little bit, but honestly, they're going to be over in the next year or two, and it's not really going to affect me there. And such a great school and great football program, the great tradition there. You can't go wrong.
Steve, how about you? What was your process like?
It was pretty simple. I basically got a school that I liked and committed. I got Northern Illinois I really liked, but once Minnesota came along, I got to know the coaches and everything down there, and that felt more like home to me.
If you could change anything about the recruiting process, what would you change?
Overall, for my family, it was our first time with any type of sport recruiting. So we didn't go like put ourselves out there. We didn't go to like camps or anything. Like Northern Illinois was my first and only camp that I went to. So I would probably put myself out there a little bit more.
So you think the exposure
Yeah,
can only help you, right?
maybe. Yeah.
Baby, you never know.
Yeah,
How about
right.
you guys?
Yeah, I would say the exposure helps. You got to get noticed early. But I think something that would help a lot of guys, a lot of people will mature after their senior year a lot more. And I think it would probably help if coaches start recruiting them later. I know that's impossible now with 8th graders getting offers. But I think that would help a lot of guys. But you just got to get out there and put your name out there.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Recruiting started a lot earlier, especially for football compared to other sports. But yeah, I mean, signing day's February 5th, or the first, Wednesday. It's just.
So you might
Yeah.
be. Would you be in favor of early signing period?
I wouldn't. I mean, just because I know a lot could change, especially after the senior season. You get the senior highlights. A lot could change, so there's still a lot that you have to figure out. Especially me, I changed in January. I was committed in July, so a lot of things can change. I like the February signing day.
Yeah, and Clayton, I want to go back to something that you said about the recruiting services, which have you labeled as a pro-style quarterback, and the usefulness and maybe some of the negatives about these recruiting services as well, because I'm sure you guys follow them. You look at them from time to time to see exactly what star rating you are according to whether it's Rivals or 24/7. And the fact of the matter is, those star ratings and your descriptions sometimes actually affect how much you guys are recruited. How much attention do you think should be paid to these recruiting services, which have a job of kind of evaluating you guys from start to finish?
Yeah, I think the college coaches don't put a whole lot of stock into them because they know who can play and who can't play. But I know just with like guys that are going to Northwestern, like Justin Jackson, I feel like he's not rated as high as he should be. And I know there's a lot of other guys like that. But as players, we can't put too much stock into it because some guys who are 5 stars or whatever will think it's their job to go in and start as freshmen where they don't think they have to work for it. So I think that would be a negative side to it, but it's fun to see that and see your name on websites. So
Yeah,
cool.
Brandon, do you pay attention?
Not too much. I think it's too early to tell, honestly. I think for some players, some of the 5-star players, they're obviously, great athletes, but a lot of the 3 or 4-star players, I think it's really early to tell. And they could kind of develop into great players or, go the other route. But I think a lot of 3-star athletes, develop.
Yeah, like Glenn
Couple years
Mason
in
says,
college,
you have a
yeah.
lot of 5-star
Yeah.
athletes who never make it past their freshman year, and there are guys who get no stars who end up playing in the NFL. Now, Stephen, I was reading a little bit about something that you said during one of your visits to Minnesota, and you said one of the things that maybe set them apart was that they talked to you about maybe playing goal line offense, something like a fullback used to do like Howard Griffith. How much truth was there to that?
It's 100% true.
You want to carry the rock a little bit when you get up to Minneapolis?
Yeah, it's a new opportunity, something different. Yeah, I like to do that.
You got any advice, Mr. Griffith?
Stay low, my man. Stay very low.
That'll be awesome.
I'm curious as to where you guys stand, and especially you, Brennan, with knowing that we had a coaching change which affected your recruiting on the current rules, which allow the coaches to go anytime they want. But once a recruit sets his name down and belongs to that school, you have to wait a year if you want to transfer within Division I. Would you guys like to see a change made to that from the player perspective or from the coach perspective and force a little bit more penalty toward the coach if they decide to leave?
I agree with the current rules just because a lot of players commit to coaches. One piece of advice a lot of people gave to me in the recruitment process is don't commit to a coach, commit to a school. But I don't think that's all true because I think a coach does have a big part in a football program's success, like Coach Franklin at Vanderbilt. So when he moved to Penn State, I knew he was going to do great things there as well. And when he got a couple of Vanderbilt commits to switch, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the players respected him and they believed in him, and
Yeah, how much of the recruiting is done, guys? Clayton, I'll start with you, by the head coach as opposed to the assistants or the recruiting coordinators?
Yeah, well, usually starts out with recruiting coordinators getting in contact with you, and then offensive coordinators and obviously defensive coordinators too. But I think once you really start getting into the process, I know Coach Fitzgerald talked to me. Northwestern's a little different. Coach Fitzgerald will talk to everyone. He'll have guys in his office. But I think it really starts from the recruiting coordinators, goes to the coordinators, the head coach. But I think it's just wherever you stand.
Stephen, how much did you talk directly with Coach Kill in your decision-making process?
I mean, with the NCAA rules, I couldn't talk to him as much. But when I went down there, of course, I talked to him. I talked to him on the phone a couple of times. But overall, he was a big part of my recruiting process.
Finally, before we get you guys out of the chair and back for dinner time, was it more relief? Was it more joy? What was the emotion on that first Wednesday in February when you signed?
It was more joy because I was basically already relieved when I said the words that I wanted to commit. But yeah, I was glad that everything was over.
Brendan?
Yeah, it was honestly a mix of both. You know, especially the last few weeks of the recruitment process, really crazy. You know, kind of picked back up again after my senior season. So it was a mix of relief and just, you know, overall happiness that I finally had a school and that I felt really comfortable with, and I can't wait to get started in June.
Clayton, you had known for a long time. What was your emotion?
Yeah, more joy, like what Steven said, just because I knew where I was going. Yeah, and I was just excited to get going.
Stephen Richardson, Brendan Brosnan, Clayton Thorson, headed to Minnesota, Penn State, and Northwestern, respectively. Guys, congratulations. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having us.